Can Arsenal win the Premier League this season? Can we finally take that jump from second to first? We're going to talk about it. I want to stress, we're talking about can Arsenal win the Premier League. So for those people that are watching that maybe aren't Arsenal fans or are Arteta out and would rather we fail so that they get their own way, we're not talking about will Arsenal win, because I don't know who's going to win. But can Arsenal finally do it? We are just 2 days away from the start of the Premier League season. And we're at that point again where, for me, I'm just buzzing. I'm excited. I'm convincing myself that this is going to be our year. And look, I think there are reasons to believe that it could be our year, that we could go and do it. Now, before we get into it, if I could ask you to please subscribe. We're on the way to 23,000 subscribers. There is going to be daily, as much as I can, Arsenal content this season. And if you could like the video, it does massively, massively help me. But I first want to talk about the past 3 seasons where we have finished second. And I think it's easy to forget that, like, last season we did finish second. It was a bad season compared to how we probably felt we should have done. And of course, with City slipping up, we felt like we should have been the ones that were there to capitalize. But we did still finish second. We were the second best team in the league. And what do we need to do to take that jump? And actually, if you look at the last 3 seasons, really what cost us in each of those seasons were different things. In 22-23, we never had the squad to win the Premier League. We just didn't. We didn't have the experience to win it. We didn't have enough players that had the sort of nous that we needed to win it. And we didn't have the depth of squad. I mean, you could argue even our best 11 that season may not have been good enough. But certainly, once the injuries kicked in, particularly when we lost Saliba and Tomiyasu and we were relying on Rob Holding, like, I don't think it is plausible that we could have won the Premier League that season with the way that it had gone. And you look at Rob Holding's career since that season, it's absurd to even think that we could have. Now, of course, like, we could, had things gone our way, had we done certain things differently. But from that squad, there have been, 4, maybe 5 players that have actually made it to the point where we think they should be starting next season, which probably speaks its own story. 23-24 was by far and away our best effort. It was the closest that we came, but we still fell short. And we fell short that season because early in the season, Arteta, I think, had overcooked some of the changes that he had made. We'd become far less fluid, and we dropped points in games, which has been a problem throughout Arteta's tenure, against deep, sort of mid-block, stodgy teams that we struggled to break down. And we lost a huge amount of points in the first half of the season, went on an incredible run in the second half of the season, but it wasn't quite enough. And that was a problem that I still don't think we overcame last season either. So that is definitely a problem that exists that needs to be solved. And then last season, it was a combination of those issues that I've just mentioned and also squad depth, lack of ability to rotate, and the injuries that came along with it. So if you're talking about the 2, in my opinion, big things that we needed to fix going into this season, it was squad depth and it was breaking down those low mid-block teams and ultimately coming out on top of games where we don't create a huge amount of chances, clear-cut chances. You're talking games like West Ham, Everton, Fulham, Villa, Newcastle. Like, it's always the same teams. And we always go into those games knowing this is probably going to be a long day. Have we done that? Have we done enough this summer, based on the squad that we already had, to fix both of those issues? In terms of the depth of squad, I think we have. I now look at Arsenal, when you combine it with the players that we've got coming through, in terms of Waneri, Miles Lewis-Skelly, possibly even Max Dowman, but I don't want to rely on him. I look at it and I think, in every position now, we have 2 players that I would trust other than possibly at left wing. But, you're going now, Raya, Kepa. That's okay. Of course, you don't want Kepa to be starting, but it's okay. White, Timber, ridiculous. Saliba, Mosquera, who looks like an absolutely brilliant piece of business. We've seen him in 3 preseason games so far. It is only 3 preseason games, but he's played at right centre-back, left centre-back, and right-back, and he's looked incredibly comfortable, physically looks dominant, like, under the radar, perhaps outside of the Arsenal fan base. I think that was a really, really good bit of business. Left centre-back, of course, you've got Gabriel, you've got Calafiori, and you've got still Jakub Kiwior. And then at left-back, we've got Calafiori and Miles Lewis-Skelly. Zinchenko is still here, but that's by the by. But ultimately, across the back line, very, very happy with the depth in each position. As the 6, you've now got Zubimendi and Norgard. Both of them have been impressive in pre-season for me. Zubimendi looks like a huge upgrade. I saw David Ornstein today talking about the fact that within the industry, they think this could be the signing of the summer. Of course, Liverpool wanted him, and he has looked phenomenal. But actually, as well, Norgard, in a couple of the games, he's such a great screen. And in those games that are going to be battles, I think he's going to be really good. You've then got Declan Rice and Mikel Merino as the kind of left 8, but you've also got other players that can play there, Kai Havertz. You've got Ødegaard and now Nwaneri coming through. You've got Saka, Madueke. I think Madueke is really good depth for Bukayo Saka. You've got Gyökeres and Kai Havertz. And I actually think, people are unfairly critical of Kai Havertz. I think having Kai Havertz potentially as a backup striker is very, very good depth. And then you get to the left wing where I think, maybe it's Madueke, Martinelli, Trossard. I would really still like us to go and get one more left winger. And I saw today, again, David Ornstein suggesting that Eze perhaps now not the priority because Nwaneri signed his new deal. And actually, when that initial interest in Eze came out, it was because we were worried that Nwaneri wasn't going to sign. And so now, actually, the priority will be a left winger if we can move on Trossard and Fabio Vieira and Reece Nelson. So fingers crossed we do that. And if we do bring in one more left winger, genuinely at that point, and that is a level raising left winger, I just think we are very, very strong in every single position. So in terms of the depth, I really do think we've gone a long, long way to solving those issues this summer. And then it comes down to quality, effectively. Do we have the quality to beat those teams that we struggle against so much? And this is we've not had any issues against the big teams. You look at our Big Six record and, it's not a trophy, right? What a trophy. It's not a trophy. But our record against the Big Six in the last 3 seasons has been very, very good. Last 2 seasons in particular. Do we now have the quality to break down those teams that we've struggled against? I think we do. I think in Martin Zubimendi, in what that allows Martin Ødegaard to do, in the movement of Victor Gyökeres, I genuinely believe we do. And then in the directness of players like Calafiori, Madueke, I really do think that we've got the ability to unlock those teams now. And on top of that, with Victor Gyökeres, I really believe that we have the striker that will score the goal, the one goal in the 0-0 draw that we need him to. Or when we've conceded one of the stupid goals that we concede and then it's 1-1 and again we need someone to bail us out. For me, he is your bailout striker when you're struggling to create. So in both of those senses, where I look at what has cost us, I do think we have enough to compete for the title. I do think we're at a point where we can win the title. The difficulty is going to be how competitive the Premier League is going to be this season. I think it's going to be an unbelievable Premier League season. I'm looking at, in my predictions, I'm saying City are coming 4th. That's madness, really. When you look at the squad that City have, they have done decent work bringing in Cherki, bringing in Reinders. But I've got them 4th because I look at Chelsea's squad. I think it's a very, very good squad. As much as I don't like them, as much as I don't like the way that their fans are massively hyping up that team whilst also not kind of feeling like they should be winning the title. But it is a very, very solid team. And they've done a lot of good work again this summer. And then, of course, Liverpool won the title last season and look like they're doing everything they need to upgrade that squad. Both fullbacks sorted. We're looking at Guéhi, then a younger centre-back in Leone coming from Serie A, Ekitike, Wirtz, and possibly Alexander Isak. It's unbelievable. Of course, they've got Engamoa coming through as a young talent like we have Max Dowman. So it is going to be incredibly competitive. And this is why I kind of look at it and go again, we could finish on maybe 90 points, not win the title. But when people say, well, if Arteta doesn't win the Premier League, do you sack him? And it's I don't know. But I think we can win it. I really do. I look at possible weaknesses in those squads. I think Chelsea without a Caicedo big drop-off there because Lavia's never fit. And outside of that, I don't really think they've got a replacement for Caicedo. Levi Colwill's out for the season now. That's big responsibility on Joel Hatto. You look at Liverpool, if they don't get Guehi, big problems at centre-back, I think. But also, I don't think they've got a proper six still. Salah will go off to AFCON, which could be big for them. So, there are possible weaknesses that all depend on ifs and buts and maybes in all of those squads. That's where I actually think in terms of depth, we are probably looking the prettiest in terms of depth in every position. There's not a single Arsenal player that can get injured where I'm like, that's an absolute disaster. Don't get me wrong. Saka gets injured. Rice gets injured. You'd be pissed off and it would hurt us, but not as much as various players at other clubs. So I think we can win it. I also think we can win the Champions League. That's a different story. I still think it was almost an opportunity missed last season. Looking back at it, you think, God, if we had Gabriel and Havertz against PSG, what could have been? Even those two. But I'm excited. That's the main feeling. I'm excited. We've got such a big start to the season as well. Such a difficult start. And I made a video on TikTok today talking about how I actually think that could benefit us. We're going into the season. All right, actually, our preseason wasn't great. And it felt like we did need to get into some rhythm and we needed to find some momentum. I felt like Bilbao did that when we played what is probably our best 11 on paper right now, other than maybe Martinelli at left wing. We found that rhythm against Bilbao. We looked much better. We were more direct. But going into that opening 6 games, which is, United away, Leeds at home, all right, that's the only kind of gimme fixture that we've got in the opening games. Anfield, Forest at home, which won't be easy. City at home, which won't be easy. And then Newcastle United away. That is a really tough start. But we're fit. We're fresh. Everyone seemingly at the moment is available. And we've not made wholesale changes within the squad. It's very possible we go into the game against Manchester United, and I'll have another video up sort of previewing that game specifically, but it's very possible we go into that game with only Zubimendi coming into the squad as a new player. It wouldn't surprise me if Havertz starts and if Martinelli starts, and that would annoy people for sure, but it wouldn't surprise me, and I wouldn't be uncomfortable if we did it, to be honest with you. Whereas Man United, they've got an entirely new front three that need to gel. Will Sesko start? Not sure. They haven't got their midfielder in yet, which I think leaves them really weak and vulnerable in midfield. And so, now's a good time to play them, I think. You played them midway through the season at Old Trafford. We might have had a midweek Champions League game, which, of course, they wouldn't have had. We could have injuries that they might not have because they're only playing once a week. So, yeah, I think that first 6 games is going to be big, really big. Would love to go through it unbeaten and really kick off the season well. But time will tell. Ultimately, can Arsenal win the Premier League? Yes. Yes, we can. Will we win the league? I guess the next 9 months is going to tell us. But look, that's the end of the video. No live stream today because there was no real news in terms of ingoings, outgoings, or incomings when it comes to the transfer market. But I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do like, please do subscribe. Make sure you are following the channel this season. Very excited for it. And we're just 4 days away from Arsenal's first game, which is absolutely sensational. Listen, have a fantastic evening. I'll catch you all on the next one. And until then, goodbye.